Therefore, now, how do we help in improving your scores? Reading, as I told, is challenging. We first have to inculcate the practice of reading more. These days, I don't think most of these students are doing reading. Before, the students used to read novels and all. These days, students don't find much of time after browsing their mobiles or say, systems for the content, and they hardly find any time to read hard copies. This makes the reading practice go down. So here, first of all, we'll try to boost their reading skills with telling them what skills are required here. Now, when I say reading, it's not just one reading skill they require. They need to require some sub-skills that will help them to improve on the scores. That is trying to understand where they have to read slowly, where they have to read rigorously, or where they have to read in detail, where they have to infer the meanings and so on. So there's so many sub-skills that students have to focus, and this is where we help them telling which question type requires what type of sub-skill to crack the test. Next, coming to the practice, initially, the students might find it difficult, so they can go a bit slowly. It's okay to go slowly, but over a period of time, with this kind of practice, you will definitely be able to do better than what you were doing prior. So, you'll improve your skills, reading skills, that is pick up the fastness over a period of time. It cannot happen just overnight, as I told you all. So, this is again where we help the students to put them to the practice of reading a lot and trying to understand the question types. Now, all question types cannot be read in the same way and answered in the same way. Each question type has its own strategy to look at and a tip to follow to get the required score. So, we make a difference here. Now, it could be possible that not all the students find the difficulty in the same question type. It varies per candidates. At that moment, we try to identify where exactly the candidate is losing his bands or where he is unable to understand the concept, and try to give a kind of one-on-one kind of approach to help them understand where exactly what type of mistake they're making and how do they overcome this bit. So again, with the kind of practice test we have with us for paper-based, at the same time the online content, it will give you enough practice to help you improve on your scores. So it's overall 60 minutes and 40 questions that you got to address in reading module. This is challenging, as I told, because for 1 hour you're going to read and write the answers on your own. Now, the other difficulty for reading here is the students just assume that they can write whatever they understand from the passage. This is where they make a mistake. You are supposed to take the answer only from your passage. You cannot use your own intelligence in writing the test. So this is what, again, they have to be quite sure about. Now, moving to the last module, that is, I'm talking about the major 3 modules, that is listening, reading and writing. Writing. Now, this is the most challenging task for almost every student. What they assume is what they cannot put on the paper. This is where it makes a difference to them. Okay. So, when it comes to writing, this is again a 1 hour module. So, writing 1 hour, reading 1 hour, listening for about 30 to 40 minutes. So, overall, it's 2 hours, 30 minutes or 40 minutes is your test. And writing, when I say 1 hour, in this 1 hour, what are you going to do? Is it same for again academic students and general students? Writing differs again for academic students and general students. For academic students, you need to write a report as task 1. First of all, let me say basically writing is divided into 2 tasks, task 1 and task 2. Task 1 is report writing for academic students, while letter writing for general students. And this is what varies in the complete module, that is writing module. In this component, writing component, task 1 varies for both academic students and general students. However, task 2 is the same, that is both of them have to write an essay. This is common for both of them, but task 1 varies as per the module you have chosen. Whether you're giving your academic module depending on your requirement or you're giving the general module, you'll have to choose your module, and as per your module, you are given either report writing or letter writing. This is what you need to write when it comes to the writing module. Now, when I say report writing, report is something which we need to do a bit, systematically, because we cannot include again anything on our own. Only what is seen on the paper has to be put on the paper using a wide range of vocabulary that helps us to give the academic language. Okay, so understanding the report, which again has multiple kind of tasks, you have about like bar graph writing, it could be about flow chart writing and so on. There are multiple which again, where you have to understand and then write it. Okay, so this 1 hour's time is divided again in between your task 1 and task 2. Task 1 you're supposed to allocate 20 minutes and for task 2 it's 40 minutes, which is suggested time. However, it's how you manage your time there, but this is the suggested time by the examiners. 20 minutes for task 1, while 40 minutes for task 2. This is more than sufficient for us to complete. So, most of these students again invest a lot of time in doing the best job when it comes to the task 1, that is either report writing or letter writing, and they use about 30 minutes and they run out of time when it comes to writing task 2, and they just ignore that bit where they lose their bands. This is where you have to pay attention. You need to see that you complete on time, though nobody is going to stop you at that stroke of 20 minute. You need to cut at that time and then begin with task 2. However, I told like it's you need to manage your own time over there. That doesn't really matter. Now, when it comes to the letter writing part, it's again comparatively good enough to write, but again you need to identify what type of letter you are writing and accordingly you need to address. As this is an a global test, your language do matter. That is, though you're using just English, whether you're using a formal tone or informal tone is what matters. That is where we need to pay a lot of attention, especially for the general students when they're doing the letter writing. Okay, so this is all about the letter writing. Even you're going to take 20 minutes only. And when it comes to essay writing, it's common for both of them. And the question types are similar. The questions that are given are similar. Now, you may assume or you may have a doubt like what kind of questions can be asked when it comes to essay writing. In essay writing, generally the questions that are asked could be something which is common across the globe. So it could be about universities, education, it could be about sports, it could be about movies, it could be about celebrities and so on. So these are all the general topics that are asked here. But what matters is, though the topic is too general, there is a specific question type that you got to target and write your answer. So understanding the question type is the foremost thing you need to do, and accordingly you have to put your structure in the essay to get your required bands, which should be understood by the candidate. Do enough practice to crack the test. This is where they have to work on. Now, as writing for 1 hour is quite boring, this is what is neglected by the students, and that's where they lose the bands. So here we put them to rigorous practice to understand how to write the whole structure, divide the content into bits and pieces, make them practice each piece to do a good job, to see that they improve the score on every part of the essay, and then do a complete essay which should match to the standard of the examiner. As this is an international language testing system, your language has to be at an international standard. That is a quite formal tone using good vocabulary. You're not supposed to use any kind of simple vocabulary here. We need to eliminate all such words and use only good vocabulary without repetitions. This is where the candidate has to work, and we support them with the complete information, with bits and pieces of information, how they have to improve on the score. That is where we make a difference. Okay, this is all about the writing module, which has to be practiced enough. Now, again, if you're in the assumption that just a practice of 1 week would be enough for you, as I told you, yeah, for the smart students that is enough. But for students who know their potential, I would recommend you to practice rigorously and consistently. In fact, I would say that you can start your practice from 1 month before or well in advance, okay? And then do a practice of all the 4 modules daily so that you get a command. Though it's all English, you need to have a command on the language which will boost your confidence to give the test with enough confidence to crack your test. Okay, so this is where you need to work and target the test. The last one, that is the speaking module. When I say last one, this is not going to be only after your 3 exams. It may be prior or later. As I told, the slot will be given by the examiners. In case you have the exam prior, yes, one day in advance, or if it's paper based, you may have 3 days in advance or 4 days in advance. This will be informed by the council to you. You'll have to go give the test. So how long this test is going to be there? Okay, this is just for 11 to 14 minutes. Then what's the reason for students to be confused or nervous here? Speaking, most of them are confused, or I must say most of them could be a bit nervous because they face the examiner. They're going to face an interviewer. That's where they find it really challenging. So though you're going to face an examiner, as I told you, it's 11 to 14 minutes test. Even before you realize that you're giving a test, your test is almost done and you're out of the door. So what do we do in this 11 to 14 minutes test? And the question in your mind would be now, how is the examiner going to just assess us in this 10 to 15 minutes time? It's quite possible for the examiner to assess your language. You're giving your test only to show your ability on the language, your command on the language. So it's more than sufficient for the examiner to understand how much of language you have with you. So this test, this 11 to 14 minutes is divided into 3 parts. Part 1, Part 2 and Part 3. Part 1, the questions are too general for you. Okay, first of all, the examiner introduces themselves to only make you comfortable with the examiner there, and then begins with Part 1 questions. That is all the general questions like small introduction about your name, or it could be about your family, it could be about your city, it could be about your likes and dislikes and so on. So this is quite easy, and this is an interactive session. As the examiner keeps you asking questions, you'll have to answer them. And this is quite easy, but we may lack vocabulary or we may be unable to come up with instant answers, though you're familiar with all the knowledge, all the information about yourself. So this is where some of the students may not be able to perform well. But comparatively, Part 1 is the easiest one. Now moving to Part 2, it is an extempore kind, I must say. That is, you'll be given a topic and you are supposed to speak on the same topic. There is no choice for you, remember. You're supposed to speak on the same topic for 2 minutes. Though you're given 1 minute's time for preparation there, you need to, once the preparation time is done, you'll have to speak immediately after that 1 minute for 2 minutes. That's where I said it's an extempore. So you need to speak on the topic that is assigned to you for the 2 minutes time. And once you're done, whether you spoke for 2 minutes or not, the examiner will stop you. They're not going to give you any time beyond this, and then move on to Part 3. Now, Part 3 is again a kind of, you'll have a series of questions. It's an interactive one where the examiner keeps you asking the questions and you'll have to answer. But this is going to be a bit complicated because they're going to, demand you to come up with your opinions and views on certain